Disclaimer.
The thoughts and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily the views of Tash, Becky, or Be Your Best You podcast.
Hey there, lovely people. Welcome to Be Your Best You with Tash and Becky, your go-to hangout for all things spiritual, subconscious, and downright magical. We're here to sprinkle a little mystical wisdom into your everyday life and help you level up your reality.
Picture this as your cosmic coffee date, where we chat about the unseen world, blend in some psychology vibes, and stir up the subconscious magic. Get ready to be the queen of your own reality, live a life that lights you up, and have a blast doing it.
So grab your latte or your tea and let's dive into another episode of Be Your Best You, where the mystical meets the mundane and your best life awaits.
Cheers to creating magic together.
Let's do this.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Be Your Best You with Tash.
And Becky, the guest edition. And today on the show, we have Hannah Dudley.
Hannah is back, and this time we are not talking about astrology, we're talking about the highly sensitive person. This episode is going to enlighten you and give you aha moments and realizations about yourself. A lot of you will already identify as empaths, but are you a highly sensitive person? They are slightly different, even though they overlap. But understanding whether you are an HSP is going to really help you in so many areas. But most importantly, it's going to help you trust and build your intuition, which we know a lot of you guys are looking to do that. So this is very informative. And Hannah basically gives us 4 traits of a highly sensitive person. And you should be able to see yourself in them. And this is where you might just feel like, oh my God, I've just had an epiphany moment.
Hope so, yes.
So enjoy those. Okay, so if you're the kind of woman who's doing all the healing work, all the mindset work, all the manifesting, but you still feel stuck, it's not because you're broken. It's because your nervous system and your subconscious doesn't feel safe to slow down. So we made you a free 12-minute audio experience called Return to Self, the Subconscious Reset, to turn down the noise and bring you back to your center. Grab it free in the show notes. And today we have on the show back again, Hannah Dudley.
Yay!
Hannah, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Oh my God, I'm so excited to be back with you guys because I just love your podcast and everything you're sharing the world. And I'm really excited to get into this topic of sensitivity and what that means for people. So
Amazing. We are,
yeah.
because obviously the last time you were on the show, we were talking, we did speak a little bit about being an empath, didn't we? But obviously you're an astrologer, and we were speaking about an astrology a lot, but since then you've kind of honed in more on this kind of sensitivity and empaths and all these kind of good stuffs, and really harnessing that and seeing that as a superpower. So I think a lot of our audience are gonna obviously already identify, they're going to know that they're empathic or empaths, but potentially they might still be, without even knowing it, feeling like a victim to that and not actually truly harnessing it for the superpower it is. So we are excited to dig in and see what you have to share.
Yeah. And I think, and as I was saying to you before, I think it's just so important right now for people to understand that about themselves, because as you said, there's when you're very different and your nervous system is more attuned and more sensitive, you can really go about life feeling like there's something wrong with you or you're flawed. And that's been my own experience of this. And this is why it's such an important topic, because I think with so much chaos and uncertainty in the world, I really do believe it's empaths, it's the highly sensitive people that are going to save the world and actually help people up level and see the world through that love and that compassion that we really need right now. So that's kind of the lens I'm coming in with. And I guess to just start, I mean, as you shared, astrology is the lens I use for people to understand themselves, because I think if you are different and a highly sensitive person, or you might relate to the word empath, because I feel there's crossovers. For example, for me growing up, it's you always were kind of criticizing yourself of like, why don't I fit in, or why am I struggling with this when everyone else seems to just get it? And actually it came to me, so I think story is always a powerful way to illustrate things. It's just like, even feeling, which I didn't realize when I was maybe 10, it's just that morning, every morning before school, I just get really anxious. And I remember, like, I think I had like Weetabix back in the day, like for breakfast. And I used to think that that was giving me a stomach, pain.
Yeah.
But now I see it was anxiety. And I realize now, of understanding what I do about myself, it's like, actually, a lot of us are going to be stressed in those environments, walking to school. I was overwhelmed. Like, I was worried about like all the people at school, and I went to a small school, and then like that constant stimulation of like moving from one lesson to the next, and just all the things you have to navigate. It's a lot if you have that attuned nervous system. So my mission is just to educate people, that actually, for them to realize that the weakness that they think, the sensitivity they think is a weakness, is actually your biggest strength, you know? And that can take some changing the narrative and going, okay, well, how is this? Because there are challenges of that. There are superpowers, but there's also challenges, and you need to know how to navigate that in the world, right? So that's where I'm at right now with it all.
And that's where
Mm.
it's so helpful to get to the children, isn't it? Because that's where it all starts for us, doesn't it? When we go to school, because we're comfortable at home, hopefully if we've got a nice home life, and then we're pushed out into this world, like you say, all those things we've got to navigate. And we end up beating ourselves up about it, and there's no one to explain it to us. Hopefully, like our kids, we can tell them, but we need people like Hannah to go into the schools and teach the children how to view that and turn it into the superpower that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, um, I just think, I will go through like the 4 traits of the highly sensitive person. So some people watching this might be familiar with the Highly Sensitive Person book by Elaine Aron. Have you guys heard of that book?
I've read that
I
book,
haven't.
yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it takes a while to get into it. So it's quite like a psychological book, which I love, but it's not a book you can read for hours.
Yeah.
But essentially, when I found that book, I think I read it in about 2019. Like, I knew, I was on this kind of more conscious path, and I was like aware that I felt a bit different. But it was like that book just gave me so much recognition, and I really felt seen and heard in a way I'd never felt before. It's like, okay, this is why I've always felt a bit like an alien and like, had to navigate life in a different way to most people. And I think the hardest thing about it is that if you are sensitive, if you are an empath, you literally have to learn how to design a life around your nature, not do what everyone else is doing, because it's not going to work for you. Right. And that's when you're going to burn out, because from the book, and I'm not sure about the exact statistics now, but when she wrote the book, it was like, she said only 20 to 30% of the population have this trait of high sensitivity. So it was quite narrow,
Yeah.
right? It's quite a low percentage, but you just assume that everyone is like you,
Yeah.
and everyone feels things deeply when they don't. So I think that's the challenge of like, you've got to stop learning. You've got to stop comparing yourself to most people. Because if you do, that's where the self-doubt's going to kick in, and you're going to think that there's really something wrong with you when there's not.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, like you said earlier, that at this stage right now, we are bringing more awareness to this, because, yeah, like you said, back then, 20 to 30%, but I don't know about you, but I really feel like the new souls coming in now are coming in more sensitive. So I would say that figure's probably gone up quite a lot, which is even more important now that we have this conversation and we make adaptations in society as well as in just in ourselves, because let's be honest, school as it is now is an absolute nightmare for highly sensitive people. I mean, just the sheer volume of kids crammed into these places, you know, it's just, well, there's just everything about it, even like, you know, very relevant now with the heat wave that we're going into tiny boxes with no aircon, no air, having to wear a uniform. Like, for anyone that's uncomfortable, but for highly sensitive, that is a nightmare. I mean, my daughter is very highly sensitive, and it's just like torture for them. One thing I will say though, with these new like souls coming in, even though they're sensitive, they've got a bit more, like, I think they've come in with a bit more awareness than we had as well. So that, and they won't have it. Like, we kind of, because of our generation, it was like very much people pleasing and all the programming that we had, because we now are bringing up our children a little bit different, but also I think they're coming in different. They're just like, no, this is not going to happen. They're making a stand.
Yeah.
I love that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I love that. Yeah, I definitely relate. I think you're right with there are more a higher percentage of people that are just very intuitive and emotionally intelligent. I think we've had to learn that from our challenges and kind of adapt. But as you say, it's so important for the world to adapt to us. Because also why I say about comparing ourselves is it's like if you have like a highly attuned nervous system, you're going to need a lot more space, a lot more time and rest than most people. Or like, let's say, you know, the majority of people, although there are more souls like this. And so then I remember getting sucked into this hustle of like, I've got to work hard. I've got to, you know, work 9 to 5. And when that didn't work for me, you just have that internal dialogue of like, I've failed.
Yeah.
Like, why can't I keep up? But it doesn't work. And I think that is the real gift of sensitivity, of people that feel deeply, is that they're able to really see and feel also what like the world needs, you know, what the collective needs in that moment. And I think as well that it's so important to educate those younger generations, because that's going to help, you know, the people coming after us as well. You know, we've learnt through that people pleasing, I definitely have, of like abandoning, you know, maybe abandoning our needs and saying yes when we meant no. And I think that's such a detriment to our like well-being in so many ways. Yeah, so it's such a big topic, isn't it? And it's that education piece, and it's changing the narrative that we are here. Like, I remember somebody saying to me a couple of years ago, she's like, the aliens aren't coming to save us. We are here to save the world. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not like, and that sounds like really big, but it's like through those small interactions we have, like you say, you know, your daughter's highly sensitive. That's amazing awareness that you probably taught her how she is, and she's now able to navigate the world in a way that works for her, right?
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's powerful, and that we've got, our generation have got a big job on our hands, because we're the bridge, aren't we, between you know, every, like the abandonment and also then, you know, the empowerment, and we're having to do it for ourselves and then pass it on to the generations below us.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough, but it's also like pretty cool as well.
It is cool,
Yeah.
isn't it? And I also think, like, say, our kids have come to teach us as
Yeah,
well. So, like,
yeah.
we're able to help them navigate it because they're highlighting in us what we felt. And now us as adults, and now, you know, if you're in the spiritual world
Yeah.
as well, it's so helpful. We can give them the tools that they need. It's like we're all working together, isn't it?
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll feel the benefit of that, because look, these systems aren't where we need them to be, full of these, well, what would you call
Heart-led,
them?
empathetic,
Yeah.
like highly sensitive souls.
Yeah, that's what we need, isn't it? Because all
Yeah.
the systems are just crumbling with what we were told was the way to be. You know, like, you know, life's hard, life's a bitch, then you die. work
Yeah.
hard. Oh, if you know, if you're not in misery, you're not doing it right, you know. And then you realise one day, oh, hang on a minute, that was a big aha for us, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When we were like, oh, life gets to be easy. It's a choice. Okay, so that was
And
that was a game changer.
that goes into then obviously, Hannah, what you're saying with when you start wanting to see that life gets to be easy, you have to lean into sensitivities and understand your sensitivities in order
Yeah.
to make the choice to make it easy for yourself, i.e. not pushing yourself when you're tired, not putting yourself in a room full of like loud people when you need to be retreating and re-energizing. And so
Yeah.
I suppose that like hands off nicely to you, where we can kind of talk more about, you know, what the traits of a highly sensitive person are. Like, so say for example, for our audience listening to this now, if they're maybe wondering, oh, am I a highly sensitive person, what are the kind of things that they're like going to notice?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I love that you got me to that point. So I was waiting. Okay. So, because I thought that introduction is important. Yeah. So basically, I'm going to break it down because The Highly Sensitive Person, great book. She breaks it down to 4 things. So it's the DOES acronym. So first of all, number 1 is if you're not sure if you're highly sensitive, the first thing is depth of processing. So you can tell. So what this means is that you basically feel things under the surface, right? So say somebody is you're having a conversation with somebody. You're not just noticing their words, you're noticing their facial expressions, you're noticing their body language, you're noticing, the tone of voice they're using. You might even feel, the emotion, how they're feeling, what they're thinking. Again, it can vary, but it's really about, like, imagine it's almost like electricity. We know it's there, but we don't see it. It's almost like that is what you're experiencing. You've got like a sixth sense that not everyone has, and you're taking in so much. For example, even just being in nature, sometimes I get like really emotional because if you're really present with nature, it's so beautiful, and we come from nature. We're in connection with nature, and it's like you're taking it in, but you're not just taking in the flower, you're taking in so many aspects of nature, the energy of it, the tone of the color. So it's all these almost subtleties that you are experiencing. And so also relates to, and some of these do cross over that I'm going to go into, but like depth of processing can be like you feel things more intensely. So, maybe you watch, I know for me, if I watch like a sad film, I'm literally like bawling my eyes out. I'm not just crying and I'm fine. I'm literally could be sobbing for 5 minutes. And we experience like heightened joy. It's not just joy. It's like joy that we're ecstatic for days, maybe. And for example, I'll share because it feels like a big deal for me, and just a good illustration of this. It's like, so I was just in a theatre production, which is also really way out my comfort zone, right? As well, because I also want to identify that not all highly sensitive people are necessarily introverts. They can also be extroverts that are highly sensitive.
Yeah.
I'm not an extrovert, but just want to point that out.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, I found drama again after like 19 years. And we were working up to this drama production, which was at the weekend on Sunday. And honestly, before the show, I felt just so many emotions, like the nerves, the excitement, oh God, everything, like the fear of just mucking up on stage, even though I was like small parts in this show. And then everything felt so intense. But after those 2 shows, I was just like on a high for days, like absolutely elated. Like, wow, like that's a massive thing for me to overcome, is like being seen on a stage. Like, it was terrifying to me. And then I can feel, okay, the wave of emotion, or after that elation of like real sadness that this whole journey is over, that I've been working towards since February. So it's kind of like that's an illustration of like the depths of emotion that we go to. And because if you are highly sensitive, you feel pain, you feel the pain of the world as well, right?
Yeah.
You might feel that on your shoulders. That's also a real sign that you're tuned in to energy and emotions. So that's the first one. Is there anything you want to kind of add about that before I go on?
Well, actually, just as you said that, you might, because I feel like it's relevant because of the state of the world right now as well. I feel like it's also important to say that, yes, you do feel the weight of the world's pain on your shoulders, and lots of people, highly sensitive people, can actually identify that is what the pain is. Oh, this is coming from the pain of the world. But I think it's important to know that also you might not know that that's what it is. So you could just feel this overwhelming sadness or anxiety or these heavy feelings in your life and think that they're yours, but they're not. And I think that's a really important thing to know for like highly sensitive people as well, because I know I was actually one of them. And it's only from becoming more in touch and developing my sensitivities, which obviously we're going to talk about how to use them as a superpower, which I have learned to do in my journey. It's only since I've done that I can now think, is this mine, or is this somebody else's, or is this the world's, is this a collective, and I think that's really, really powerful when you can do that, because you can see how highly sensitive people can suffer from anxiety or depression, or like they can't like go out in social anxiety, all the things, because you just think it's you. So I just wanted to add that as well, just because that's personal experience for me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm the same.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's that is important. It is like having those energetic boundaries of knowing like this is my emotion and that's yours. And that is such a challenge that I think, I've had to navigate that. It's been a hard lesson to learn that we're not here to absorb other people's pain. And that is what the highly sensitive, person or empath wants to do, because they want to bring that love and compassion into the world. They want to take away people's pain, but it's not your job to, and it's not your responsibility to. And that's probably one of the hardest things to face as a sensitive person. So yeah, the next point that she adds in the book that I think a lot of people struggle with is the second point of like, if you're highly sensitive, the trait is like overstimulation. So yeah, you know it. Obviously this it speaks for itself, but it's like adding on from what we spoke about, you can get quite anxious quite easily or quite overwhelmed. And so this can be just it's really important as well to learn, if you know you get overstimulated quite easily, is to be mindful of those environments you're going into. Because if you're picking up on all those energies and emotions, even in a supermarket, your nervous system is going to be like almost like in a fight or flight state, depending on where it goes for you. It's going to be different. So it's being really mindful of who you surround yourself with, which environments are actually good for you, like what calms your nervous system down versus what, heightens it. And it's like, I think it's also really helpful to have like strategies in place, like, because, we can plan around this and our nature, but it's like, for example, if you're sensitive to bright lights, I'm really bad. I live like a bat and like just walk around with candles when, the evenings. That's just me. But like, fluorescent lights, that might be something. Yeah. Like in supermarkets, it could be like loud noises. And even like an ambulance that's really loud, it goes past you and it just puts you on edge.
Oh yeah. Or motorbike going
Yeah.
past.
And then it makes me angry.
Yeah, right. So that's kind of a sign, is if you kind of feel on edge from like outside stimulus, that's also probably a good sign that you are highly sensitive. And so yeah, there's strategies, because as well we're like receiving so much information and so much energy from the world around us. That's why it's so important also to just be mindful of what information you're taking in. Technology, like how much you're on screens. I know like I can get overwhelmed if I'm on a screen for too long. Hence why I couldn't do like a remote job on a laptop all day, because it just burns me out. And so like strategies, and actually I still haven't got these, my brain keeps forgetting, but those loop like those loop earbud things that really help background noise. If you're going somewhere busy, you have to go somewhere like that. Or sometimes I don't care if I look stupid, I'll just wear like sunglasses in a shop because I don't care. It's just like that is going to help me stay in my little zone and kind of cut down that stimulus, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's quite an obvious one, of feeling overstimulated quite easily. Is there anything else you guys want to add to that, or anything you've
Well, I know that
experienced?
something that I've always been overstimulated by is socks.
Oh,
Socks.
I
please.
I can't have socks on my feet unless I have to. As soon as I get home or out of shoes, they're like they have to come off.
No,
And
okay.
yeah, and I've always had that as a child. And I'm never like, I didn't, again, it's about awareness, isn't it? I didn't realize that that's what it was. I didn't know I was being overstimulated by my socks. I know I just didn't, I had to get them off. And I was like, this. And when I took them off, I was like, but now as an adult, and again, like just going into the whole, the managing the strategies, I know that as soon as I get home, take the socks off. Don't wear flip-flops as much. I'm always in flip-flops. Wear flip-flops as much as I can. Like manage it if you can. If it's, if you're able. Anything, it's like my hair, like usually I have to have it like off my face, like even if it's just like a clip like this, as long as it's off my face, because otherwise I start feeling myself getting really, really agitated. And before I realized I got so overstimulated, because if you'd have asked me even like 10 years ago, oh, do you get overstimulated? I'd have been like, no, no, I don't. Oh, there's so much that overstimulates me, I realize now. And so just having that understanding, I never get like, I would just feel agitated and angry all the time. And I wouldn't know why. Again, it's a bit like the you don't know you're taking on collective energies. Now I'm like, my life's so much easier just because I know to take my socks off. Yeah, I'm being silly, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I love that. And you know that, so you can work around that. And I think, and that's key to knowing exactly what it is, particularly that overstimulates you as an individual. It's just be curious of like, even like, do you know, I see it with my partner, and I describe him as sensitive, but like I got him to do the highly sensitive quiz, the one in the book recently. So I was like, oh, he was kind of open to it. I thought, oh, and I got like 29 out of 30 or something. Pretty much every single one. So guys, as well, if you want to check, you can get their book, and you can probably find the quiz online as well. But I think he got maybe like 12, no, maybe like 15 and a half. But I see he's just in the kitchen cooking, and I just walk in, and it's like he literally jumps out of his skin. So it's like his nervous system just goes into this fight or flight because I've just walked in the room and he didn't expect it. So we all have our little quirks.
Yeah, mine was balloons. That reminds me of the balloon, like the anticipation that it might pop.
Yeah.
Me around the room with the balloon trying to pop it on me.
That's so mean.
Isn't it mean?
Yeah.
Too big brother.
I used to hate the party games because when you had to sit on the balloon and pop it, I was terrified of that game.
And are you going to be out as well? Like, are you going to get that chair? It's the anticipation of the game. I didn't care about winning. I didn't care about being out. But was I going to get to that chair?
You feel like that? It's almost like that anticipation makes you feel overstimulated, would you say?
For me, the anticipation. And then you now like pass the parcel. Is it?
Wow.
Yeah,
all
just
party games for you. Then. I was just talking about the balloons.
But that's interesting. And so you imagine like thinking about the, you relating to that with the party games of being a kid that's highly sensitive, that you've got to sit round and play pass the parcel, and your nervous system is on edge. For me, it was like I hated jelly, absolutely hated it. I think it was like the texture. So then they came round, dish all the kids out like jelly and ice cream, and then you feel awkward because you don't want to say no because you don't want the attention on you, so you just kind of try and eat it, and they're like, yeah. So it's just things like that.
It's a nightmare, isn't it? And then they chuck us into the wall. Oh my god.
Yeah. So the overstimulation is an interesting one.
Yeah.
And so the third trait to sort of, if you're see if you're highly sensitive as well, is we sort of touched on it, but is the third one's emotional reactivity. So again, it does connect in with the depth of processing, but this is really like, okay, you feel things at a deep level. If you're a deep feeler, always clues are, and this angers me so much of the narrative we've been told a lot as little kids or children. It's like, okay, oh, you're too much, or
Hmm.
you're too sensitive, you're too emotional. Like, why do you cry so much? All of those are probably signs that you felt so much as a kid. And also the fact that this is a sign is because we're not as conditioned when we're little. So you're just naturally yourself. You're going to cry. You're not trying to block it when you're really young. That's just your natural response. Like for me, I realize as my mum and dad always reflect back to me as a baby, I was always crying. And that's been internalized as, oh my gosh, you're such a pain in the ass. We couldn't ever get you to sleep. But now I see that I was probably really overstimulated and I was just really sensitive to my emotions and everything just felt too much, that was my way of like trying to receive what I needed, you know?
Yeah.
So it can be things like that. Um, and yeah, like the story of feeling anxious before school. And it comes into like what we were saying before about if say you walk into a room and you just feel the energy of the room, you're probably sensitive. Whereas most people might not even, notice what that energy is like. Or if you go into an old house and it's like, oh, I can feel this feels a bit heavy energy, or, somebody's house feels like really good, light, joyful energy. You're picking up on that energy, and those emotions. And sometimes as well, like I always think highly sensitive people, empaths, are amazing listeners. So, if you're having a conversation with somebody as well, that is such a gift because you will make people feel seen and heard in probably a way they've never experienced before, just by you being there. Because again, that depth of processing allows you to really you're almost listening underneath the surface of what somebody's saying.
Yeah.
And almost, it sounds strange, but you'll get this almost like energetically guiding them to like what needs to be surfaced. You're not doing this like from your mind, your just energy is receptive, and that helps them kind of, feel what is lurking,
Yeah.
or share something that needs to come to the surface. So that emotional reactivity or also resilience is just you have that emotional intelligence in abundance. You can sit with deep emotions, and people will also feel very seen and safe with you.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a key thing of a highly sensitive person. Such an important trait.
Yeah, and I think once you realise that as well, that's when you can obviously put your protection in place, because don't we always, before we realise this, we seem to attract people that do feed off our energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, you think it's just you, like, oh,
Mm.
why can't I just have a conversation and not be exhausted, or what's wrong with you, or be a good friend, all of that.
Yeah. And I also think, like you said earlier, Hannah, we just assume that everybody's like us.
Yeah.
So when we're able to do this for other people, be there emotionally and make them feel seen and heard, whether we're doing it consciously or unconsciously, it's almost like when we don't get that back from people, we can get resentful,
Yeah.
or we can make it mean something about ourselves, that we're not good enough or we're not worthy enough. But actually, we have to remember some people just aren't capable of doing what we can do, and that's okay. That's not their fault. I'm not talking about people like you were saying that draw it out that on the more the narcissistic side, but just some just to don't have the capacity to do that. And that's something I think, as a highly sensitive person, I know I definitely had to come to terms with. Like, don't get resentful for it.
Yeah, it's so helpful though, isn't it? Once you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, like you say, that that not everyone's equipped or has that same level of awareness around their emotions, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just knowing again that you are different. And when I say that, I never want to say different. It's not that we're like better than anyone else. Everyone's equal. It's just that we have to treat ourselves in a different way to be able to function and thrive in the world. And that is something that I'm like on a mission to do, is like, if you can design your life around, knowing that you get overstimulated easily. And actually as well, I think one of the strategies, I've gone back, but connects in with what we're saying, is like having one of the big things that's helped me is having like transition time between things. So, and I'm really distracted because I can hear somebody wheeling a bin in the background. See, that's the whole like depth of processing. I can't just shut that down. And I forget what I was saying. See, the strategy of transition time. So like having time between activities, or you do, like I do this podcast recording, like as much as it's energized me and I love this, it's just like, okay, having some space to just, be in the garden, put my feet on the earth before I do something else. And I think that's a real key thing for people to understand, because again, the clock's going off now.
It's just trying to like emphasize the points.
I love it. It's like right here in actions helping me illustrate this point. Oh my God. See? Because we're aware of everything. You can't just switch it off. Oh God, it will come back to me. But yeah, that time, that's it. Because we live in such a fast-paced world, we think we have to do everything at a million miles an hour. But for the highly sensitive person, what you actually need to do is slow down more than you think you do.
Yeah.
And it might feel like you're regressing. It might feel like 2 steps back before you go forwards. That is your pace. If you are, if you're the tortoise, you're probably the tortoise, not everyone, but be the tortoise, not the hare, because you're going to do things with intention and with love. And that is what's important. And that will actually build momentum, like in your life and business. That's what I've learned really in the last couple of years. It's like, you don't have to do like a million things today to move closer towards what you're creating. You just have to follow that aliveness and trust your intuition. Because if you are highly sensitive, you will have like a very developed intuition. You might have shut that down. And that's, the work I think we talked about is like, you have to train and kind of, if you shut it down, reconnect with that intuition again, and really learn to trust it, because that is a superpower for you. As much as some of these things can be challenging, that is your guiding light, that is your compass, so to speak, is also to follow your intuition, because you know what is right for you. You don't need a manual. And that's where I find, that's where I love astrology, because it's like the roadmap. Somebody can understand themselves and go, oh, yeah, I can relate to these traits of sensitivity, but how does it actually, what are my specific challenges? And like, what do I need in place to support me to actually function at my best,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got one more, have we?
And so one more, yeah. So then the fourth one is subtleties. Subtleties to, I think she puts it subtleties to sensitivity, but we're just going to say subtleties, so that's the right mouthful. So it does, I feel like this does connect with that first one, depth of processing. And this is, again, you're picking up different layers of emotion. So for example, you might see, I'm looking at this, there's this bright pink on this book. I might see, somebody will see bright pink, but actually if I look closer, I can see there's kind of like a magenta tone to it, and there's like a, like a rose pink underneath. So this is really noticing the subtleties of life, of like the layers. And as well, I think this, because that sounds quite abstract, but coming back to this conscious path of like, when you connect with your emotions and do that work, on the surface you might sit with yourself and go, oh, I'm really feeling sadness, or I'm feeling, this grief, and you're able to actually go, okay, what's underneath that? Okay, there's a layer of anger. Okay, and if I'm just here and I just allow that, what's the other layer? So you're really able to just sense under the surface. And if you do, like you guys do with the beautiful subconscious work that you do, you're just able to go there. You naturally have a gift of intuitively knowing where you need to go and what you need to feel. And that is, again, one of the superpowers of like the sometimes you just know things. And as a highly sensitive person, you might doubt that because you've been told that you have to logic something out or you have to have a linear path. But actually, this is about you. You know that for a reason. You don't have to explain it. There is no explanation that comes with that. You feel something or you feel inspired to offer something in your business or whatever. It's like that's coming from your heart. That is part of your mission, your purpose. It's not random. If you feel a desire in you, that is part of your path, and you've got to follow that. And I feel that's the real subtlety, which it comes back to sensitivity. You know that you are really sensitive as well. If you've just always felt your intuition is like pretty developed and it's on point. And again, that's going to play out depending on how you feel your intuition. You might be might be an inner knowing, might be through visions. Like that's something that comes for me is I'll often get like quite vivid dreams. And sometimes I've had it. And that's what freaks people out is they can get almost like premonitions when your intuition is as well as like opening up even more of like almost a vision of what's going to happen. And almost I freak myself out because I was vague in the interpretation, but the day of the show, so this was on Sunday for our production of Persephone, and I I looked at the chart of the moment because I was like, oh yeah, let's see what the astrology looks like for today. I pulled up the chart and I could see this energy of like, oh, there might be something unexpected or like a radical erratic energy today, something that happens. And I just really, because there's so much, in astrology, so many symbols you can tune into, but my intuition specifically went to that symbol. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I just clocked that. And then long story short, in our second show, this is exactly what happened. Is one of the cast who was also I was a nymph, like little forest creature, and she was also playing a nymph, and it was a lot of fun for like mischievous, playful character, and she we came off one scene, and she had this really sharp pain in her side, and also that energy can be like shock. And I was like, are you okay? She didn't look well. So she sat down, and this was during the interval. So they extended the interval and said somebody's not very well. She sat out, and luckily somebody was like a paramedic and they came. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But she wasn't well, and that was unexpected, and we had to adapt. So she was in, a couple more scenes. We had to literally, it was like radical thinking. We had to think on our feet. And it was very much that energy that I'd seen of like, I feel like something's not going to go to plan. And that's exactly what happened. I was like, okay. I could think of more, there's probably more exact examples of that. But it's like, there's a feeling, trust that.
Yeah.
Because it is powerful. And, you're not always going to predict the future, but if you have a sense about something, trust that, because that is such a superpower. And it's when we don't listen to that then it, we go down the wrong path, and it's like, oh yeah, but my gut said this and I didn't trust it. So it's a reminder to really listen to that. And with that subtlety with that you feel, again, it's learning, which we came back to sort of boundaries of learning to say no to things that don't light you up. Because, as a sensitive soul, you thrive. You're going to come alive when you're doing things that you love. And it's not going to help your nervous system if you're doing things that drain you. And I've had to learn that the hard way from doing so many different jobs over my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, that might be a sign that you're highly sensitive, is that you haven't really had a linear career path. That can also be a
Yeah.
sign that maybe you tried the corporate world and it just didn't work for you. That's probably also why.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And you know what I was like thinking with all the four traits that you've you know told us about, and also ending up with the subtlety thing, and then you obviously going on to the intuition and trusting that. I feel like all four of those traits are really pointing to, they're all about intuition, aren't they? Everything
Yeah.
fits into your intuition. So I feel like the whole moral of this, but you know, to bring it all together, like a highly sensitive person equals highly intuitive, you know, being. And the more that you can get to grips with each of those things that you've gone through, the four pillars, the more you're going to heighten and trust and develop your intuition. And it's really, that's where it becomes your superpower, right? Everything's towards your intuitive gifts there with what you said. And I also feel like I wanted to say too, because I know this was from my personal experience, even if you're a highly sensitive person, you might not even resonate with any of the things you've said, because you've blocked it off so much
Yeah.
that you don't recognize that you have all these gifts. I know that was definitely like the case for me. Now, like underneath, on a really, really deep intuitive level, I did know, but everything about my programming and life experiences told me that that wasn't the case. And I think that's really important as well, because, you know, what I hope from this episode and you going through the four traits, and again, like you said, that book made you feel really seen. For me,
Yeah.
I came across that book very early on in my like awakening journey, conscious journey as well. And me too. I was like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, I am so, I think I scored like 28 out of 30 on it as well. And I was like, whoa, that's the thing. I thought that was just, again, going back to what you said, I thought that was just a weird thing that I had, like an annoyance I had, something that I've always been told is a negative. You know, like the amount of times I heard, oh, you're too sensitive. I mean, not to throw my husband under the bus, but he was always saying to me, oh, you're so sensitive, because he's actually the opposite to me. So he's on the other extreme. So, you know, for him, yes, he just couldn't get me like at all. And I truly took his words and made it mean something about me. That was the story I told. Like, yeah, there is something wrong with me. I'm way too sensitive. Get a grip, Tasha. Particularly if I had like senses or feelings about people that we would be around of me, and I'd express them to him and be like, not sure. And he'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's a really nice person. You know, and then I think, oh, I'm so horrible. Like, I'm so mental. Like, what is wrong with me? But it wasn't, I was in such a contradiction, because I was like, but I'm not being, it doesn't feel like I'm being judgmental. I don't mind. Like, it's not about that. It was just such a deep feeling that I had, like a knowing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I completely like gaslight myself out of it because of this narrative from, you know, Chris, but then, you know, from when I was a child as well. Tasha's so sensitive.
Yeah.
We're so sensitive. Like, I was like, yeah, there's something wrong. So I just denied all of it. So I hope that this episode and you going through these things might do the same thing as the book did for us, where you just go, oh, wow, that's good. Didn't know that. And hopefully open it up and then dig into it. Like, because the magic of it is just incredible, isn't it, when you dig?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that is important you said about blocked it off, because the amount of times I just like come into contact with some, you know, out and about, or connect with some, like sometimes often women that have like a hyper independent. I mean, I was like hyper independent, trying to like push through life, but I can see underneath that they're actually a really sensitive soul. And that's almost like a protective mechanism. Because like you said, if you've been told you've internalized there's something wrong with you, you're going to try and adapt and create strategies so you do fit in. So you're not, you know, a bit weird or perceived as different, so you can survive, right? It makes sense. And it is a journey. And even if you can just see yourself in some of these traits, just be really honest about that. You know, if you look back to when you were really small, like how were you as a child? You know, were you crying a lot? That could probably be a sign that you're, overstimulated. And, I know that as well. I was probably quite, again, there's no malice or I'm forgiven, but, if you're like my mum had postnatal depression. So as a sensitive baby, I'm picking that up,
Yeah.
and that's just how it was. So probably I was also crying for her as well. And I didn't feel safe, and I was trying to feel, get my needs met, and like a baby, it needs that nurturing, it needs that like nervous system regulation from its mum. So if it doesn't get that, probably likely are those people are going to go into almost a masculine energy of like pushing and like I've got to work hard to actually avoid that sensitivity. Because also I think that the thing that scares people is if you admit to being sensitive, you're vulnerable, right? You're actually really innocent, and almost there's a fragility about that quality, which is so beautiful. But also if you're somebody that, for example, I think we talked about like people, draining our energy, we will attract people that maybe have a denser energy. I know there's a whole thing about like, I'm not an expert in it, but like, narcissists, empaths attracting narcissists and that dynamic, that then you squash that down because you've got to be seen. You've got to feel safe. So there's a lot of actually almost, I feel there's like denial that can come with that. And also when you realize that, there can be liberation, but there can almost be like grief. Like, why didn't I know this about myself? Like, if I'd known this when I was little, I could have got the support I needed, right? Or like, for example, when I was a kid, I was always told, it's almost like my dad was sometimes embarrassed because I wouldn't want to hug the person. Could be a stranger, could be like a family member, like distant relative, like, oh, hug them. And I didn't want to. And it's because I was feeling their energy. Kids know. I probably didn't like the feel of their energy. So I was just like, whoa, that was my boundary. And so he was embarrassed because he was going, oh my God, this is embarrassing. She's rude. Like that person's going to perceive me as being rude when actually I was just in tune with energy. So there's so many layers to this. It's just,
there are
yeah.
you could spark off so many conversations just
definitely,
from
yeah.
this. I just think it's such a big thing, and also I do think it's the key. Like obviously, the women that I work with are typically highly sensitive people, empaths, absolutely, whether they know it or not. And there's so much programming, obviously, with the work that I do on the subconscious, like deconditioning, so to speak. There's so much work around this, and I feel like all the stuff that I'm working on is all stemming from them being a highly sensitive person and not knowing, and society not addressing it, and everything comes from that. I could give you 1,000 of ways where that's the case. So it's such a big conversation, but also I think it's such an important realization, because like I said, it was something that I came across very early on in my journey of this awakening. I think I realized very quickly that, there's a word for what I am, an empath, because I knew I was empathetic. Because a lot of us can say, oh no, we're caring. Yeah, we do care about people. We're good listeners. We can say that about ourselves, and that might be as far as it goes. And I think when I found out that there was a name for it, it's an empath. Okay, cool. And then read the book, I was like, wow, this has just opened a whole new level of understanding for myself. And it was like I could then start working on those bits and pieces of myself, and then that has like whole consequences on people pleasing and self-worth, and not dimming yourself and stepping into like everything comes from the understandings you can get from Right, just before we end this episode, we're talking to you. Yes, you, the one who consumes everything, podcasts, books, courses, but still can't embody it. If you know what to do, but you can't seem to actually do it, that's not a motivation problem. It's a subconscious safety problem. So we made a free 12-minute audio called Return to Self to calm your system and bring you back into alignment so things finally start working. Link in the show notes. Understanding it?
Absolutely. And I think it's so powerful because if you haven't felt understood, being seen and heard is like so healing.
Yeah.
Absolutely so healing. And I think that that's what I'm on a mission to just educate people about these traits. And I know some people don't like labels, but I just think it is so helpful that if you are feeling different, it probably is because you've got that more attuned nervous system. And once you recognize that, that can open up so much for you, you know. And actually I've been working with this client who has felt very blocked around her voice, and she loves singing, she's getting into acting, and it's like we had to look at like these narratives, you know, we're looking at that through the birth chart of like, actually she stifles her own energy, she shuts it down because as a kid she was told from her mum like, oh, you're a bit different, like, oh, you're too much. So she's literally shut that light down, and so her creativity has been blocked and her voice is literally blocked. And it's like, through understanding these parts of herself, is that okay, actually the first step is just learning to listen to yourself, you know, listening just gently. It doesn't happen overnight, but like, okay, listening to your instincts, listening to that intuition every day. It's like a practice. How can you just get curious? And it might not be really loud at first, you know, it's a journey, but just consciously going, I'm just going to listen and drown out the noise. And that's why having that space and downtime is so important, because you haven't got that stimulus bombarding you that's going to overstimulate you, you know. I think it's so good, and I was telling my clients, just have like a day or two a week, or like two preferably, where you don't have any kind of calls or any agendas, like no one needs you.
Yeah.
You're not, you know. And even just shutting your phone off for like a day is so helpful, because you're in your own energy, which is going to fill you up and reset that nervous system so that you can hear that intuition more clearly and then, you know, follow it. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Well, this has been
Yeah.
so, I just think this has been so helpful.
Yeah, what we
I
need
feel,
to hear.
yeah, I feel like it's going to help a lot of people have a few kind of like aha moments and like, no,
Yeah, even for us, just talking about it, it's like, yes, you know, it's just nice to have a reminder as well that, you know, yeah, it's not us, you know, it's like you say, turning it into a positive. It's not
Yeah.
a negative thing. And the more of us that can step into this, the better. So
amazing.
that,
Hannah, is there anything like, before we go, is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with? Anything you'd like them to know and take with them from this?
Oh God, I could say so many things. um I feel like the last what is just coming to me is like, I just want to say, you're not broken. Like, you're not, you don't need fixing. You've just been trying to operate in a world that doesn't understand sensitivity, right? Because that doesn't feed into the system of like that feminine way of being. And, you know, you're here for a purpose, and you're here to actually, you know, everyone keeps talking about that, bring that new earth in, because the reason you don't fit in is because you're here to create a new world.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna say, you know.
More.
And start, you know, just start appreciating, start being curious about, you know, what you love to do as a kid. If you don't know, start there, because that gives you clues to your true nature. If you feel that disconnected from your true nature, it was there when you were a little kid.
Yeah.
You know, and follow that curiosity and things will just keep opening up for you. Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Great.
Perfect. Perfect. Such a good place to start. Right. Well, then.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Hannah.
Hannah. It's lovely to have you back on.
Oh,
Really was.
thank you. It's a joy. And I just hope that this helps people feel seen and heard, because I knew I needed that book. And, you know, this is the work that I do with people, is like, you know, zooming in one-to-one on like how to manage those traits and how to live a life around that so you thrive and not like burn yourself out. So yeah, it's important.
It's a reminder for them. What's the name of the book? Is it the 4 traits of highly sensitive people?
So it's the highly sensitive book, The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron.
Yeah.
And there's also this really good book which I'm reading, Sensitive is the New Strong.
Yes.
by Anita Morjani, because she had that near-death experience.
Yes.
Kind of put on that path to go, okay, this is your mission. You're actually here to teach people about sensitivity. So
Yeah.
powerful book.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Right, 2 books for you guys to go and grab. And that's it for this week.
That's it.
We will see you next week. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you so much.